Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Academic Success Workshop. This week it is going to be on time management, specifically focusing on how to create a routine, stick to a schedule, and different tips about how to manage your time effectively. So just an introduction about myself. My name's Madison. I am the graduate assistant for academic coaching and engagement for the Student Academic Resource Center. I am currently a first-year master's student for clinical psychology on the thesis track. And I went to University of Florida for my undergrad and got my Bachelor of Science in psychology and my Bachelor of Arts in criminology. So basically from my undergrad experience, I definitely had to figure out an effective way to manage my time properly just because I was split in a lot of different directions regarding doing research, attending classes, working a part-time job. So some of what I'm going to present is going to be what personally worked for me, as well as some studies that show what works best for college student in general, and hopefully some tips that you guys can take away from this. First, I kind of want to just give a general discussion about our services here at SARC and what we have to offer. So we have kind of four different areas that we focus in. So peer tutoring is one of them, and these are for high drop, fail, and withdrawal courses, which are mostly going to be based around STEM courses with some business, and then there's sometimes foreign language in there. And they're either on a grouply basis, which we have group sessions all throughout the week, both on Zoom or in person. And then you could also schedule a one-on-one appointment to have an individual peer tutoring session. So whatever works best for you. And then we also have supplemental instruction. So supplemental instruction, same thing with the DFW courses. So you're mainly going to see STEM courses in there. However, the difference is that for supplemental instruction, you have a meeting about 4 times a week for 50 minutes each time, and it's specified with the SI leader actually goes to the class with you, knows the professor one-on-one, and it's a lot more individualized based on the class you're taking, whereas peer tutoring takes about a 2-hour session once or twice a week. So supplemental instruction will meet more often for shorter amounts of time, whereas peer tutoring meets less often for a longer period of time. And there's different courses for each, which you can see our schedule based for those two on our website, or you could go to our social media. It's posted there as well. And then we also have academic coaching and engagement. So this is essentially one-on-one individual sessions. For this, an appointment is always needed, whereas for supplemental instruction and peer tutoring, at least for the group study sessions of these, it's drop-in, no need to make an appointment. So for ACE coaching, you're essentially going to have either an in-person or virtual session based on whichever you prefer. And you're matched with a coach who is also a student here at UCF. And you essentially collaboratively assess what needs you have academically. So whether it's learning new strategies for studying, finding out some sort of motivation for you so you can stick to your schedule and your work that needs to be done. Also, they could help you with figuring out how to effectively study for a test or calm test taking anxieties, direct you to resources that can help as well. So this is more so having a coach for an academic coach. And as I said, this is on an appointment basis. However, we do have about 4 different academic coaches, so there's definitely availability if anyone is interested. And this way you can also go through our website, SARC, UCF SARC, just type it into Google and sign up for that. And then lastly, we do academic success workshops, which is what you're watching right now. So we'll do different topics throughout the semester based on kind of student feedback, what they're interested in, and what's we see is most helpful. So today's is on time management. In the past, we've also done it regarding stress and wellness. We always do a finals workshop just to discuss some effective strategies for studying for finals during about the week to 2 weeks before finals week. So definitely check out our schedule each semester since we do about 6 workshops a semester and we like to vary them each time. So today we're talking about time management and organization. So specifically figuring out how to create your own routine that ultimately will lead you to academic success. So I kind of like to ask this reflective question about what are the most common goals and obstacles students face when they try to manage a college schedule for the first time or even after being in college for a couple years or a couple semesters. So typically I would have the students reflect on this. So I'm just going to give you a couple seconds to think about this in your head. So some common goals and obstacles that I'll hear from students focusing on the goals section first is are trying to make new friends, keep a high GPA slash mean or earn a high GPA if they're new, figure out kind of just a clear direction for their life, especially since most people at UCF are undergrads. So kind of just figuring out what they want to do for their major, what they're going to do after they graduate, and then just kind of become socially involved in the campus life at UCF, whether it's joining a club or volunteering, and then kind of just discover and grow as a person since your undergraduate time is marked by that heavily kind of developing into adulthood. However, some common obstacles that sometimes can get in the way of achieving these goals is kind of one, figuring out a major. That can be super difficult for students if they have a bunch of passions or opposite, don't have a clear passion that they want to pursue. Family commitments can come in the way of this, having to travel from campus to family homes, especially for people who live farther away. And then also just like personal concerns, trying to balance everything, trying to figure out what the best decision for yourself is, as well as for your academic life and social life. But ultimately, I think a lot of it boils down to a lack of time management skills. So essentially, a lot of the obstacles we face can kind of be overcome by figuring out an effective way to manage our time and doing so appropriately, which will ultimately help us achieve our goals. So I kind of first wanted to discuss this false notion. So a lot of individuals, especially students first coming into college or even a couple years in, will think that they simply don't have enough time in the week. And that's the reason a lot of where a lot of their stress over time comes from. So I kind of want to take a minute to disprove this. So breaking it down into the week, there's about 168 hours in one week. And if we're devoting about 15 hours to in-class time, considering that 15 hours might be the average amount of credits that you all are taking, give or take a few. And then we're getting our adequate amount of sleep each night, our 56 hours of sleep. And then we're also eating meals, taking about an hour per meal a day. We are still left with 76 hours that we can use if we have a part-time job, so working for 20, and then also, of course, self-care is super important, giving ourselves time to socialize with friends and take a moment to relax is, of course, going to be essential. So we'll say we're devoting 25 hours to that. So that ultimately means there's still going to be about 31 hours that we can devote to studying if we effectively manage our time in this way and figure out where we can fit it in the day. So this kind of gives you more of an idea of how we can figure out where we're missing those hours so we can devote them to studying. So kind of figuring out where our hours in the day are going. I think a super helpful way to do this is simply making a list of everything you do during the week. So what you'll do is, I think a super easy way to start is looking at your screen time. So if you just, most phones, you'll just go into the settings, click on screen time for the week and see how many hours um you're spending on your phone per week. And this is super easy because you basically can just put in that amount of time and write it next to it. So you'll do this for each activity. I'd personally just like to start with screen time because in my head it generates it for me so I don't have to think too much, and then I can add it up that way. And then all the others can be rough estimates. So, for example, if you know you play video games like for 2 hours per night, and then add that up for each night. And then work, you can usually check your scheduled hours and write that down. So you do this for every major thing you do. It can be a general list as well. It doesn't have to be down to the minute, but it kind of just helps you realize where you are divvying up your time and spending most amount of time in the week. So then after I make this list, I like to kind of take a minute to reflect on it and see what are my top priorities on this list. So, for example, for me, some of my top priorities are studying and doing homework, and I would also say spending time with friends and family. So, this isn't my exact list, but I do have something in common with this list is that my screen time does usually average, I want to say probably about 25 to 30 hours a week. And I'm thinking here, many of my goals do not align with being on my phone. So while I do think it's important to have some sort of time to like veg out on your phone, relax, go on TikTok, social media, and save that time for yourself. I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, realistically, I don't need to be spending 5 to 6 hours a day on my phone. So that kind of made me realize what I'm spending my time on is not aligning with my priorities. So this was an easy way to cut back for me. So simply I tried to just spend an hour a day less on my phone. So trying to hit about um maybe about 5 hours a day instead of 6, or 4 hours a day instead of 5. So that was an easy way that I could find time essentially in my day and devote it to something else. So I was using this screen time kind of as a way to relax and not doing work. But at the same time, I was noticing that um I felt pretty on top of my work, but I was kind of often feeling like I didn't have enough time to be with friends and family. So I simply would just reappropriate the time there. So instead of spending that extra time on my phone, I would instead spend that time calling my mom or FaceTiming my friend or doing something like that that's more aligned with what my priorities are in life, which is kind of that socialization, human connection. So would highly recommend just figuring out what your habits are, and this will easily help you find where your time is going. I also like to kind of introduce this Eisenhower matrix. So it gives you a good idea of how you can schedule your time and if you even need to do a lot of the tasks that you have floating around in your head. So it's split into these four different categories. Um, and you'll see in the top left, it's urgent and important. And then in the bottom right, it goes from not urgent, not important. So this really makes it easy to figure out what is essential for you to do that day and to put on your to-day do list. And then maybe what's not as essential, and you can cross off your to-do list and move it to another day, or maybe figure out another person that could help you with it and things of that manner. So I kind of like to provide a couple of examples for this. So, for example, something I would put in my urgent and important list is going to be something that I know the deadline is right around that corner. Um, and if I don't do it today, then I am either going to get a bad grade, or if it's with my job, I'm going to get in trouble with work or something like that. So, something I think that can be put in this category is writing an essay. So if the essay is due tomorrow, that's gonna go ahead and be in your urgent and important list. However, a not urgent and not important thing, would be in your deleted category. So if you're making your list for that day of what you need to do, you can figure out what may not be as of a top priority. So an example of this could be something like doing laundry. So doing laundry is kind of, while it's not what a lot of people think as a distraction, um, I think it's good to put it in this list because it is something that you often can be like, I'm gonna just do this instead of doing what I actually need to do. So you can kind of just delete it off your list for that day. I think a lot of people will associate the deleted category with, fun plans or social activities, but it often can be things that we just use to distract ourselves so we don't complete the goals. So if you weren't going to do anything that fun that day either, other than just do laundry to distract yourself from doing an important assignment, then in your deleted category, it's going to be the laundry. So, you can go ahead, copy this down, take a screenshot of it, kind of just to refer back to it when you're creating your to-do list or trying to figure out your week. So this is kind of more so the studying portion of the workshop, because I think a lot of people will think of studying as basically just sitting down, opening a book, and reading out of it, or referring to your notes, reading your notes for 2 hours or hours on end. But a lot of people don't realize a lot of what they are doing already is considered studying and can be added into your study hours per week. So things like making flashcards or attending our tutoring sessions here at SARC or an SI session, or doing practice problems if you have, chemistry, anything math-based, stuff like that, that is all combined in the studying. So when you think about the recommended amount of studying per week, you may be like, oof, that seems very hard to accomplish, like doing even 4 hours of studying a week. But when you break it down into smaller activities, such as the suggestions here on the left, it really doesn't seem as overwhelming. And then there's also this idea that you should study based on the difficulty of your class or the difficulty level of your class. So if you have a class that is super easy to you, you have an A in it, and you understand the content very well, there's really no need to be dedicating 6 hours out of your week to studying for it. Simply, this is just taking away time from other classes that might be harder that you need to study more for. So it's sort of like relieving that pressure of, oh, I've only studied for, let's say, my Spanish class an hour this week. But if you're doing great in Spanish, you are all caught up on assignments and you understand the material well, there might not be that necessity to study for 4 hours or 6 hours a week in that class. So figuring out, typically this happens about at the beginning slash midway through the semester, what the difficultiness of the class is, and then dedicating your appropriate amount of hours of studying per week to it is going to help you manage your time more effectively. So you're not spending unnecessary time studying for a class that you don't necessarily need to for. And this goes the opposite way as well. If you find a class is super difficult for you and you're finding I'm studying for 4 hours a week, it's just not enough, take away that time from another area and put more time into studying. Up it up to 6 hours to tell yourself, okay, I'm going to spend at least 2 hours on Saturdays studying. While it might not be the most fun thing, it ultimately will pay off and make you less stressed out through that Monday through Friday week. And now this section of the PowerPoint is kind of talking more about procrastination, mainly because procrastination does ultimately cause a lot of time to be lost in our day. So I kind of want to discuss a little bit about where procrastination comes from and how it continues. So what it is essentially a cycle. So we think about the upcoming assignment we have to do or the deadline for an essay. And immediately we're going to go into this negative emotional response. We're going to be guilty. We haven't started it yet, stressed out that way it might not be our best work since we haven't started it yet, fear of what our grade's going to be. all of these different emotions that we experience. And then to attempt to repair those emotions, the quickest way to do this is to engage in an activity that's fun or relaxing for us. So maybe watching TV, going to hang out with friends, or going on our phones, or even taking a nap. However, that's not going to fix the problem. So then there's going to be some other thought or reminder that about that deadline. Maybe a friend in the class texts texts us about it, or we get a notification from web courses. So this is kind of how procrastination continues. And then they go back into the negative emotional response after getting that thought. And the cycle keeps going. So what we have to do to stop procrastinating essentially break this cycle. So the easiest way to do that and effectively do our work on time is going to be once we experience that negative emotional response, instead of attempting to repair it with something fun or relaxing, it's doing something to complete the project or complete the task. And this can be something super small. It can be something such as creating a detailed schedule of each um, each component of the project and when we're going to get it done. Or it could be starting to research about the essay and getting together a list of 5 sources to use. So not only is this helping you accomplish your goal of completing the task, but it also um, fixes the emotional repair in a positive and productive way. So this slide kind of talks a little bit more about it. So this is kind of more so for procrastination in general. What causes it? A lot of it is lack of motivation and interest. Some of it can be attributed to difficulty with concentrating, being stressed out, like I said, in the cycle of procrastination, social distractions, such as being in a group of peers, trying to get work done, but not actually completing the project, and stuff along that manner. But some cures for it, I think the number one thing is going to be having an organizational system that enforces your time management skills. And we'll talk about this in a couple slides about what organizational system is best. So, um, and additionally, to help cure that lack of motivation and interest, it's kind of just remembering what your long-term goals are. So kind of why are you doing all these tasks? Why are you working so hard in these classes? And a lot of the time it's going to be to graduate from UCF on time, get a job after that, start your career, be successful and everything. So kind of just remembering what are your long-term goals and why did you start here in the first place? I know that kind of helps me at least figure out some way to get motivated to actually complete the all the different tests I have to do. And then this is just some additional concentration tips. So this is focused specifically for when you're ready to start, but you can't seem to stay focused. So you're trying to break that cycle of procrastination. You're ready to sit down and start, but your brain's kind of going everywhere. You're not able to focus. So one of the biggest things I think is finding a quiet space to study. So a lot of people will, if they're at home, they'll want to study in the living room because they're surrounded by friends, or on the couch with a TV in the background, or maybe at their kitchen table. But often I find that when people do this, it doesn't exactly lead to the most productive work. That may make the work less stressful because they see, they're able to talk with their friends in between. They have the TV in the background they can listen to. But it definitely will ultimately take longer to complete your work and distract you. So I always recommend finding a quiet place, or at least a place that you can put some headphones on and have minimal distractions. So often, of course, the UCF libraries are perfect for this. If you have some sort of office in your home or at work, that's awesome too. There's also study rooms around campus that would be great. But at the very least, if you can't find a place outside of your bedroom is perfect for that. Put on some headphones or just close your door, and that'll be your quiet place. One thing I do warn against this is just not studying on your bed. Typically, because if you study on your bed, it often will confuse your brain since that's usually where you're gonna sleep and relax at. So your brain will kind of make your body more tired when you're on your bed. So I would recommend if you have to and you don't have a desk, sit on the ground. It's better and will keep you at least awake a little bit more. Another thing off this list that I really like to do is taking regular study breaks. So this is kind of using a sort of reward system. You can be more blatant with it with the reward system, but with the study breaks, how I like to do it is I usually like to do it longer, so I'll do it for about an hour. If I'm working on an assignment for an hour, after I work for an hour straight or study for an hour straight, I'm going to give myself a 10-minute break where I lay down, I go on my phone, I go out in my living room and talk to my roommates or something like that. If I study for 30 minutes, you can give yourself like a 5-minute break that way. This kind of just gives yourself a minute to decompress after you're studying, and it kind of helps you not get so bogged down by always just sitting there for hours on end, never being able to get up or do anything like that. So definitely taking your regular study breaks, it really will help you build your stamina for studying and completing assignments. And then right below that, the next one that I use a lot is using a worry sheet. So essentially what a worry sheet is a piece of paper. So when you are doing an assignment or anything like that, and you find your mind kind of just jumping around to different ideas or different things you need to get done, you write them down on this piece of paper so you don't forget them, but at the same time, you can get them out of your head so they don't keep distracting you. So one thing, this often happens for me. So I'll be on my computer researching something, and then I'll be thinking, oh, wait, I need to call my doctor back. So then I'll be like, okay, well, obviously, I'm not going to do that right now because that's just going to disrupt my flow. So I'll write down on my worry sheet, call doctor. So when I'm done studying, I can get everything that I wrote down on my worry sheet done. So I still remember it and it still gets done, but it didn't disrupt my study time. So I highly recommend using that. So the next step of this is kind of identifying your game plan. So what's your goals in general and what do you need to do to reach them and what resources do you have? So UCF has a bunch of resources, but oftentimes they're not as utilized or known to UCF students. So when you're thinking about your goals, it's super helpful to think about what resources do I think UCF might have to offer that I might not be utilizing as well. And what do I need to do ultimately to achieve my goals? So for me personally, one of my goals is to get into a PhD program after this, after I'm done with my master's program. So I think, what do I need to do to reach my goals? I need to get more research experience, publish some papers. I need to do well in my classes. And to do so, I think about my resources. So some resources is my professors, my advisor, even my classmates, and then also kind of just in general study groups. Like there's always study groups that my cohort will make. So always doing that and stuff along that nature. So that's not even regarding like what UCF has to offer in terms of resources. So like SARC's a huge resource to undergraduate students. To be able to have a student who has already passed the class with an A kind of tutor you and teach you. That's one example of a resource. And later on, I have a slide on some other resources that can help out as well. But in addition to this, it's not even just knowing what resources you have and what your goals are. It's also thinking about your obstacles. So what might get in your way to achieving your goals and how can you overcome it if it does arise? So kind of just identifying what may stop me from accomplishing my goal and how can I overcome that? So for me, one of the rules of my program is like if I get more than one B minus in a class, then you're kicked out of the program. So I know that that could be a huge obstacle for me. So what do I need to do to overcome this? If it happens, is talk with the professor. If I'm on a path to get a B minus, I figure out what am I lacking in, why am I not understanding the material enough, why am I doing to not score well on tests or assignments, and then figure out how I can change that and fix that obstacle for myself so I can accomplish my goals. So typically we'll do this activity with an in-person group, but for an online recording, I would like you guys to kind of just reflect on this. So essentially what the activity would be is thinking about one long-term goal you have for yourself, as well as one short-term goal. And then focus on your short-term goal, since your short-term goals typically align with your long-term goals. So thinking about that short-term goal, what are 3 steps you need to do to complete it? And then figure out what 2 obstacles might occur. And then for each obstacle, think about a resource that you could go to. This could be, like I said, in my resources, it was mainly people I would go to. But it also could be UCF resources that we have to offer, like SARC, like SI, ACE coaching, Pierce tutoring, or even just going to your friend and talking to them. So pause this video now and take about 10 to 15 minutes in your head or write it down to reflect on this. So I hope that was helpful, kind of just identifying what your goals are and reminding you why you are working so hard at UCF and ultimately how you can succeed and what might come in your way and how you can overcome that. So moving on to a more specific way to manage your time is going to time management styles. So this is looking at the student schedule. So with the student schedule, there is a great video that we have on SARC. I would go ahead and play the video for now, but instead of just watching a video inside of a video, I'm gonna let you guys pause it and then navigate to the video on YouTube to watch it. It's a 5-minute video, but it explains principles of time management very well. So how you would do this, I'm just gonna keep sharing my screen. All you have to do is type in SARC time management. It's the first link and it'll bring you to this video. So go ahead, do that now, and we'll continue. All right. So in that video, it discussed a lot of how to block your time off. So they were talking about the 8-hour work week. And I really like that as well. But I also like kind of this template of how to schedule time. And we actually have this template available on our website, under the resources tab on SARC. So at UCF SARC in Google, again, first link, this will is under the time management resources. And you can fill it out, you can color code it, or you could print it out and write it in, whatever works best for you. But in here, you can see that the person filled out the schedule and included all of their classes, what they needed to do for the day, as well as their meal times and when they were going to sleep, travel, etc. So I really like this because it's a great visualization of where the person is spending their time and they're filling up their time effectively. They know what they have to do when, and it doesn't really give you time to procrastinate or kind of not know what you're doing because you have it all written down here for you. So typically, I like to use a version of this. I like to use more of a physical copy. So I do this, except I'll write it in and I write it in my physical planner. But again, you guys could print it out or you could do it more loosely. So if you're not a fan of like booking your time down to the minute, because I understand that might feel somewhat closed off, not like you have a lot of free time, and it might be some more stressful for some people. You can definitely do it more loose. So just write down what you need to get done. So if we're basing it off of this schedule, I would definitely recommend write down at least what time your classes are going to be, as well as when you need to study. So That's super helpful because at least you have some sort of loose time periods of when you can do your other assignments or when you can eat and stuff like that. Personally, I do recommend writing in your personal time or time to do fun activities. So this person here, they put in like for their Sunday is a really great example. They wrote down their personal time, they wrote down um something like they like to do for fun, which is I guess watching Family Guy. Then they wrote down also like when they're gonna eat and everything like that. So I think this is super great because it's not only prioritizing what they need to do for their academic and school life as well as their work life, as you can see here. But it's also focusing on what they need to do to keep themselves mentally stable and keep their social life up as well as their personal life. So I definitely recommend essentially creating some sort of planner that you can use based off time. So basically writing down what you're going to do at what time. Oops, so sorry. And now, when thinking about this schedule, you definitely have to remember to be realistic with it. So I think the biggest thing is avoiding taking on too much. So sometimes you do have to say no to things. And often you'll hear that people want you to say no to things in the academic world. They'll want you to say no to things that are either in your social life or personal life, just to maximize that amount of time studying. However, I think this can kind of be a double-edged sword. So if we're always saying no to additional like social activities, that can really degrade our mental health and it can bog us down a lot. So we're constantly studying and doing all this homework, but where's the time for ourselves? Where's the time for friends and family? So when you're avoiding taking on too much, it can also just be avoiding too much with like school life. So a great example, I think, of this is with maybe a club opportunity. So let's say you're in a club, and they ask you if you can be an officer for the club, or maybe they're asking people to run for officer positions. So with this, it can easily make you think, oh yeah, let me go ahead and take this on. This seems like a great opportunity to be more involved. It might look good on my resume. But sometimes if you're simply already packed, like you have a full work schedule, your classes are already fully booked, and you would have to become more stressed by taking it on, sometimes you just have to say no. And it might seem like a lost opportunity at the time, but ultimately, if it is contributing to your self-care and helping you stay on top of your schoolwork and your professional life, that might be the right move. Also, I will say kind of be cautious of your work hours. So, of course, work is almost as much of as a priority as school is because we have to earn a living. There's no way around that. Um, and a lot of the times it can interfere with when we're able to study. So, kind of if you're planning to study, I would be a little realistic of are you really gonna study after you get off of like a 6 hour shift, 8 hour shift at work? Are you gonna be able to go home, get back home by 10:30 and study for the like till midnight? Um, in personal experience, I have not been able to do this unless it's a quick 15-30 minute assignment. I will not stick to this. So kind of being more realistic, maybe instead of saying you're gonna study after your shift, say instead, I am going to study on the weekend and I'm going to study on Saturday before my shift, or I'm going to study Sunday before and after church or something. So just be more realistic so you don't catch yourself missing out on a lot of things you scheduled. And then also kind of be realistic about how much time you allot for your schoolwork. So if you are planning to study, let's say, for like 4 hours in the day. Is it realistic to put all of those 4 hours all together? So let's say you want to study from like 1 to 5. If you're planning to just sit down for 4 hours straight, a lot of people will find that it becomes overwhelming, exhausting, and they'll give up. So figure out how maybe you could intersperse this throughout your day or split it between 2 days. Um, and then think if you've set aside time for yourself to kind of relax throughout the day. Since it's easy to be burned out if you're constantly going every single day. And this is just more of a suggestion for other time management systems. So, I discussed kind of having a planner, so where you're writing down your time management inside like that little Excel sheet maybe. But another way to do it is to just have a physical planner that you get from TJ Maxx or Walmart or something like that. And this can easily be a visual reminder, but there's also great calendars and planners online. So I love to use my Outlook calendar. So Outlook automatically will send you reminders of what you have scheduled for when. Same with Google if that's what you prefer. And it's a super helpful reminder since all you do is add it as one of your activities for the day, and you can color code it, add people to it, and send them reminders as well. So I definitely recommend looking into the calendar, since we all have Outlook with our UCF accounts. Look into the Outlook calendar because that can be a super useful resource that students don't utilize enough. But it also can be something as simple as like a post-it note or a calendar that you put up in your room or a notepad. So it doesn't have to be something crazy fancy. It doesn't have to be a $20 planner or a whole color-coded and organized Outlook calendar. It can genuinely just be writing down on a post-it note each day what you're gonna do and when. This is definitely better than nothing, especially if you're starting to get into figuring out how to manage your time. It can be a very good way to kind of just dip your toe in and then see how it works for you. I also recommend using your smartphone to your advantage. So, kind of one of the big things I think is using the reminders app. So again, this would kind of be the same idea as using the Outlook calendar, but maybe you don't want to use that or you like to keep your email separate from your phone. So basically just put in any major reminders that you'll have. So if you have a presentation coming up and you want to make sure you're there on time, put that in a reminder for the day before or the day of. Um, and then I also like just having a little whiteboard calendar. I'll keep one of these in my home, kind of just to remind myself of what I need to do each day, just major things, like if I have, like I said, a presentation or essay due or something huge. So the last step to figuring all this out our um after we have our system in place of what we're going to do. Figure out if it's realistically working for you. So, are you accomplishing your goals with your new time management system? How do you feel about where your time's now being spent? And are you mentally and physically able to complete everything that you're putting in your calendar or writing down? And how are your grades reflecting this? How is your work life and school life, social life, anything reflecting that? So just kind of seeing, is it working for you? And then think, okay, if it is working, could it be working better? So what could you do differently for it to um improve what you're doing now? If you feel like it can't be working any better, I'm doing great, then that's awesome. However, if you're like, I feel like it might be working, but also I feel like I could do better, or it's not working at all, I need more help, definitely come to an coaching session. Just book an appointment online. Like I said, right now we have four amazing coaches that are ready to take sessions online or in person, spend an hour with you, and they will individualize a plan with you to figure out how to create a better time management system for you and what you can be using. And then also use your resources. So this is kind of just what I was coming back to earlier. Figure out what those resources are and then use them in your favor. Here's a couple here just for ideas. So your professor is always going to be a huge resource that people don't always think that they want to go to, but or a TA as well. Um, Especially since a lot of TAs are going to be either undergraduate or graduate students, they're in your position and they understand it maybe a little bit better than a professor might. Speaking as a former TA myself, I had office hours and people would never come, but I was always there to help out. So definitely try dropping by some office hours for either a TA or your professor. And then if you're still struggling with either academics or maybe your work life or finances or anything like that, there's so many different resources we have here. So maybe if you're looking at finances, go to the Office of Student Financial Assistance, figure out what maybe you can apply for, look at scholarships we have to offer. Or if maybe you're struggling mentally, go ahead and hit up the UCF CAPS Center and figure out how they can help you out. So kind of just using your resources and not be scared to develop your own support team here at UCF. And then finally, remembering that you should develop your own style. This presentation is a starting point for you guys. So maybe everything you heard wasn't exactly aligned with how you do your academics, or it might be too stringent for you. Definitely just go ahead and take a couple of tips and tricks from it. And what works for me might not work well for you. So kind of just maybe try some things out. And if it doesn't work out, don't get yourself down. Just try something else for it. And right now, it is the time to be flexible, creative. So if you do figure out what doesn't work for you, that's beneficial as well. Going forward into the rest of your career in college and even professional career, you know, hey, I am not good with maybe keeping a physical calendar, and I'm not good at tracking my life down to the hour. So instead, maybe be like, hey, but maybe I am good at just writing down what I need to be and where in my phone, in my reminders app. Yeah, so just like change up your style. And then remember to use your motivation as your driving force. So whenever you're feeling like you don't want to do something, what can be really helpful is trying to flash back to whatever that primary motivation is for you. And then lastly, use those resources. Like I said, ACE Coaching, SARC is here for you. They can really help you develop your own style and approach to time management. So reviewing everything, this is kind of just summarizing what this workshop has discussed. So the first thing you want to do is always kind of just keep track of your assignments in some way. So that can be a planner, a calendar, a list. It can be on your phone, your email, whatever. So some way, just keep track of those assignments. And then assess your use of time. So where am I putting my time, and maybe where do I need to change it instead? And then based off that, create some sort of routine or schedule for yourself. So this can be based on that example Excel sheet where you're creating this routine of putting in your classes, and you need to be to this class on this day, and when you're going to eat, when you're going to sleep, and all of this. And then plan ahead. So be specific with it. You can write down, you can color code it, you can prioritize your assignments. And then finally follow through with this. So this goes back to kind of like the concentration piece, creating maybe a reward system for yourself. And then lastly, save time for yourself. So you kind of need to figure out how you are going to do the school work-life balance. So an easy way to do that is by creating a routine and visualizing it for yourself, seeing where you can maybe spend a little more time on school, maybe a little less time on socializing, or vice versa, if that's what works for you. So I very much appreciate everyone who's watched this video. If you want, you can go ahead and fill out an evaluation. Definitely not necessary. And please feel free to check out the rest of the resources we have here on our YouTube channel. And then also our social media pages, which is going to be UCF SARC, SARC. And that is on all pages such as Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you.